Welcome back to From Nine to Mom, where we discuss balancing the 9 to 5 hustle and the beautiful chaos that we call motherhood.
And today we're going to get right into the shit we wish we knew. You guys saw that we did if you follow us on Instagram, that we have some polls going out and we want to share some of the stats around feeding, whether it's breastfeeding, pumping, formula. We've gotten lots of
Combination of
things
both.
about switching off the formula and that we'll get into all that. But let's start with some of our stats. Danielle, what did our people say?
Yeah, so looking at the numbers, 44% of people breastfed, 33% of people bottle fed, and 22% were a combo. So we know that adds up to 99. We get the math. I don't know. The Instagram poll gave it to us that
Instagram
way.
doesn't
It's
get
fine.
math.
It's
Okay.
fine. Girl math, mom math.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah,
Mom
right,
math.
mom math. That's pretty much, if you look at it, very close to a 50-50 split. It looks like
Yeah.
almost 65, 70% of people at some point tried
Yeah.
breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And there's stories about that. I have stories about switching back and forth as well. And I think
Right.
that's what we expected to see. Don't you think?
Absolutely. I feel like a lot of people try or they go in with a combo or you start kind of at the beginning, you know what you want to do. I know like for me, like I knew right from when I got pregnant with Jack, I was going to be a formula mom no matter what. That was my decision that I was going to make. And, really thinking back, I don't know if I made that decision based on work or if it was personal preference,
I
but as I
remember
got,
talking to you about it, and
yeah,
you said to me outright, I like my routines, I like my
yeah,
schedules, and you also said that you just felt safer and better knowing that you could
yeah,
do it. And that's why I bought you the
yeah.
baby Brezza.
Oh, hell yeah. If you are a formula mom and don't know the baby Breza, or if you're pregnant and you're doing that, that is something to add to your registry because if you're going to give your kid formula at any point within the first 6 months, you need that. You need
It's
that
the
sucker.
Keurig of formula, right?
It's just so great. And I mean, there's been times because, I mean, we can get into all the hardships of being on formula, whether that's switching, 18 times or, different
Shortages.
reactions shortages. Yeah, it's hard sometimes to use the Brisa because when you switch formulas 5 times in 2 weeks and you have to clean that sucker out, you get a little annoyed. But same things on the other side where you're probably cleaning out your pump, way more than that. So I shouldn't be complaining about that. But yeah, I felt like, I chose formula because of my personality probably and just what I felt called to do being a mom. And, obviously with work, it did there was different hardships for both, right? Like whether you're formula feeding or not.
Yes,
I
of
had
course.
both kids, we switched multiple formulas on hypoallergenic both times. And just being able to monitor that. But how, did you always know I feel like you knew from the beginning you were going to try.
I knew from the beginning I was going to try. And the reason I knew I was going to try, everybody can judge me later, but I've always had a bigger chest since I was little. And I always figured it'd be something that I was really great at, right? Like, I'm going to
Yeah.
make all this milk. We would joke like about my friends,
Oversupplier.
oversupplier, right? We joke, my friends at the compound, Danielle, you'll make the milk for all the babies. Like,
Yeah,
totally
right.
false. The size of your boobs
Mhm.
has nothing to do with your milk output. I'll tell you that much.
Yep.
But that was one of the reasons I felt like I owed it to society, A. And B,
Yep.
I wanted the experience. And if I could do it, I wanted to try.
Yeah.
For me, both times ended up a little bit different. So what happened after one baby, I was combo feeding and mostly formula. The other baby
Yeah.
still hasn't, she has no formula and she's a year old and doesn't have any milk yet. So it's just different babies, different choices.
Yeah.
But a lot of my choice also, I kept going with Daisy because of her medical situation. And then
Yeah.
I also did much better with scheduling at work. With Colton, it was more of, I didn't know what to expect. So it made it
Yeah.
harder. There were more times in that process that I thought I might have to stop. I just don't know how to do
Right.
this. But I knew that I was going to try for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's something too with some of the stories that we'll get into of moms.
You
Like
guys had great stories.
going back to work probably put such a strain on pumping, breastfeed, whatever that whichever way you're going there. But just the scheduling and that, and I mean, even on the formula side, it's all hard, right? There's no easy path here, whichever you
No, being a
choose.
mom is not easy, period.
And but the stories were just cracking me up. I haven't experienced obviously them, but the stuff that some of you guys have gone through, I think we just need to get right into a couple of the stories.
Yeah, I think one of the things you said is when you go back to work and if you're pumping, and we'll talk a little bit about bottle feeding because that's its own challenge to getting ready for
Yeah,
daycare. But
yeah,
if you're pumping, you have to plan out your schedule and either you do or you don't, but you should. That's it just makes it so much
yeah,
easier for you, but it doesn't always work. It's best laid plan. But I think that
yeah,
the most stories we heard about and a lot of the stories that I had were about pumping in the office or pumping on work travel and
yep.
the mishaps and missteps. And I know, Katie, someone wrote in about groping themselves, which is not groping, but I feel like you need to share that story because I was dying.
Yeah, this one was from one of our listeners. And you have to fill me in. I know from when my milk came in after both kids were born, like that full feeling, which I'm
Yes.
sure you experience every day, every few hours. But this listener would be able to feel and see how full they were, how close she was to needing to pump, and she forgot where she was. She was sitting at a table with male coworkers, and they are just sitting there watching her feel both boobs to see how close she is. And it's
So
a
literally
funny
feeling
funny
herself
thing.
up in the middle of the
Literally
office
feeling
because
yourself
you
up.
forget where you are and that feeling comes on. And I think it's like an internal feeling, but also they get harder and like
And I'm
feel
just
different.
thinking of like the male coworkers that aren't dads that see this happening, and they're like, what?
Yeah, like
They're probably
even
like,
dads are
what?
like, what the hell? Speaking of dads, I
Right.
remember I didn't pay attention that I went to that work conference. It was my first work conference, and the pumping schedule, I couldn't follow it the
Yeah.
way I did before. And I was running around. I was in the moment, and I had a yellow satin shirt on. And my dad, father, was with
Mhm.
me traveling. And he looked at me, and it was like the most uncomfortable moment of his life. Now there's been way, way more like me falling asleep pumping with him sitting
Yeah.
next to me on the couch. But, I'm sitting there and I'm leaking. He's like, Danielle, you need to. And I look
Boobs.
down and it's like
Boobs.
leaking everywhere. And I have to go back to I'm so mortified. I have to go back to
Uh,
the hotel, change my whole outfit, come back and be like, sorry guys. So
just leaking through
yes,
my shirt. Yeah, I feel
awkward.
like a lot of work situations. There was another story of someone that got walked in on while putting pump on, taking it off, nipples out, multiple people coming into the room, which I think is a really hard thing because I know you experienced it, but like some offices, I know it's like a legal thing. They have to have somewhere for you to pump, but it's not a designated mother's room like you would find somewhere.
Correct.
Like some offices, it's like you use the spare office.
You go to WeWork and you've got this beautiful nursing room.
Yeah.
It's got the special washing equipment, the fridge, a sound machine. It's amazing, right? But at our work, even at the first office, there was no designated room.
No, no.
It was the men's bathroom because it was the only room that had the extra lock that didn't have windows. And the
Yep.
amount of times that someone put their key in, I started putting the garbage can in front of the door so that people wouldn't like walk in and
Don't
see
come
me.
in. I do
But
remember that one of the times you were here in Rochester, you pumped right in my office, and we just had a meeting while you.
yeah, and that's what starts happening, right? Like you start pumping on meetings. I've done it virtually, and there's nothing you can do. And then sometimes, and I think if you work you talked about the men sitting at the table. If you work with guys who, whether they have kids or not, they don't know what it
Yeah.
feels like or what it is to have to pump. And I remember I was sitting in the airport and I was traveling with two guys and we were having a work conversation. It was around a conference, in depth, heated. I'm like, guys, I got to pump before we get on this plane. Like, I don't have a
Yeah.
choice.
Right.
And they're like, okay, you go ahead, you go ahead. And they just keep talking like, no, I need to be present for this meeting. And I remember literally they wouldn't stop. I said, if you guys don't stop, I'm whipping my tits out right here. It's happening. Like, no, don't do that. Kept going. So what did I do? Took the pump out, took the bra down, stuck the pump in. I had a little towel over, but it's like, meh,
Yeah.
meh, that exact noise you made. And
They're
they're like,
like,
what are you doing? I'm like, you guys wouldn't shut the hell up.
I'm
I've got to pump.
participating in the meeting.
I'm
What do you
working
want?
and pumping. What do you expect from me? I don't know. So it's those moments
That's
that you're like, whatever.
Yeah, and I think too, because like if you think to I have to keep bringing the formula moms in so they stay strong with us through this episode, because some of
Yeah,
it's
well, that's
not
a whole
relevant,
nother thing.
obviously. That there were times where, I, instead of obviously pumping at work, I know there's situations where you are switching formulas and you have to go basically bring a brand new formula to the babysitter, daycare, whatever it is, and say, here, hope it works. See you later. Let me know how it goes. And that's also so hard because there's so many feelings, I feel like, with being a formula mom, and I feel very confident in my decision. I
And you
don't have
should.
any
Fed is
regrets
best.
about anything that I decided to do. And it's a hard situation because you feel judgment either way, right? Like
It doesn't
whatever
make.
you chose. But
Yes.
yeah, there's so many funny things that happen with that. Like I've forgotten formula, powder formula. We're lucky that we bring powder over here
I
for us. I've
I
forgotten
remember
it
you having to
places.
go run at like certain times of the day. I remember going because stores were stocking shelves and there was the formula
Yeah.
shortage and he could
Yeah,
only
with
drink that one special formula. So it was like, sorry, I
yes.
you had to go at that time or it was going to be
Oh yeah.
gone.
I was asking workers like when they restock the formula shelves. Actually, one of my tips right now, I've been having really good luck. If you're local to Rochester, but I'm sure there's so many anywhere, but those free mom swap Facebook pages, um,
Oh yeah.
getting free formula from there, as long as you're cool with like getting a little unopened from somebody. I feel like I've scoped everybody out, but I probably just got like $150 worth of formula free from these pages
Yeah, I'm
because
sure you have
moms
because they
open
try them.
it. And I mean, I went through that. I bought the formula that Calvin's on is like $40 a can right now. And you try 2 scoops of that and your baby's throwing up. You're not going to use that anymore. So here,
Yeah,
somebody take
and
it.
why waste it? Because especially when there was the shortage. I
Yes.
remember when Daisy was born, it wasn't a shortage, but there wasn't an excessive amount. And I
Yeah.
expected to, I always thought I'd combo feed with formula and milk because that's what I did
Yeah.
with Colton. And it made me feel better knowing that I had that
You have
option.
both
But Daisy
options. Yeah.
didn't like, she'd throw up after every kind of formula. And I was starting to get so stressed
Yeah.
because I remembered your journey with Jack. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen to me now. What do I do?
Yeah.
And I remember you like stressing about it because even when you got the
Yeah.
prescription, you couldn't get it in stock. And that's a
Right.
really scary thing.
Yeah. That's definitely one of the disadvantages of formula feeding. Like if there is a doomsday here, like there's no such thing as stocking up on formula anymore. You can't, like most of the places have, you can only buy 2 cans at once if you
Yeah.
can. But
Hopefully there's no
um
doomsday coming on.
I mean, hopefully not, right? I'm on that side of TikTok recently, I feel. Um, I do have one other funny story that was submitted that is one of those stories where if you don't laugh, you'll cry. And I feel
Oh
for this
no.
person, but she was pumping at work and she didn't attach the bottles to the pumps. And I don't know how this works, but I'm just envisioning the pumps on and like milk spewing out, but
Everywhere.
she did not notice it for a good 5 minutes. So she was
See,
five
that's
minutes into her
devastating
pump.
on many levels. It's like you do cry over that spilt milk, A, but B, you're
Yeah,
also like, what were you wearing? What was happening? Was everything
right.
ruined? I don't know. Oh, Katie's got to flash
My
her
life.
lights on. You can do it.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're not watching, my lights were just off. But yeah, there's a lot of stories here, and I feel like that's a common theme of being a mom. If you don't laugh, sometimes you will cry. So
Yeah. I
you
mean,
might just need
another
to
story we
laugh it
got,
off.
because I feel like travel for any mom, whether you're bottle feeding or breastfeeding, is
Right.
super hard.
How do you bring it?
How do you bring it? I remember, I don't know how you ever did it, but with Colton, I'd bring the formula in
We don't go
baggies.
anywhere.
And well, that's a way. That's a way. I would bring the formula in baggies because I travel for work with Colton all the time, if you remember. So I'd bring the
Yes.
baggies of
Yep.
formula and then I'd ask for I figured it out after time, hot water.
Right.
But when you're traveling for work and you're pumping, you have this huge, and I needed the hospital grade pump, and the person who wrote in here did too. Went to the airport, and it's supposed to not be like you should be able to bring milk and your pump, and it's not considered a
Yeah.
carry on. But according to the
Right.
airline that she was on, they were like, oh no, this is considered a carry on. You have too many pieces. So it literally every time I travel, it flags and they take it out, and there's these dudes
Yeah.
looking at it like, what is this? This was a
Yeah.
female. She told her that she
Okay.
couldn't bring it, and she's like, but you don't even have a baby. And the girl who wrote in was like, yeah, do you think the only way people make milk is with I make the milk, not the baby? She made
Don't
her
need the
wait.
baby.
Yeah, like babies, like, I mean, yeah, the baby could suck, but like that's why I have this stupid contraption. Went and got her supervisor. It wasn't until then that they let her on the
Oh my
airplane.
God.
Absolutely insane. So I think that like that's a very common thing to happen too in the airport. And it's like, you know, those girls who like they're traveling through security, see the videos and
Yep.
someone hid like a sex toy in the bag and you're embarrassed. For some reason in the beginning, that's how you feel about your pump. Because it's
Yeah. You're
huge
like
and
trying to
these
hide
little,
it. Yeah.
yes. And then you're like, I'm gonna be proud. I'm gonna be proud that I brought this thing on and just give it up. But people don't make it
And
easy.
these and some of the TSA workers are probably like, "What is that?" Have
Yeah,
no
it looks
clue.
like why like what is this going
What
to
are you
do for
trying to do?
anybody? Yeah. So I think that that was a common story that we saw too. And I look at all the stories and like what you're saying about it and going back to work. I also think that's a pivotal moment. No matter what you're
Yeah.
doing, do you change because you're going back to work? Does it impact your next decision? What I bought so much shit when I went back to work to try and make pumping easier. And I remember with
Right.
Colton, because he was like at different daycares, and I know you have a couple, I changed bottles like 47,000 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if anyone in the Charlotte area needs bottles, I have 3 bags that I'm sorting
Just
through
give
right
them
now.
away. Ugh.
Take them, take
I
them.
kind of forced Cal to use the ones we had.
And it worked.
Not at first. So I mean, we should list out all the ones we have, but and for what reasons we used them. I found that both kids did better with Dr. Brown's within that first month. They did really good with
All
the
those
Dr.
pieces
Brown's.
though.
Oh, it was god awful. I was wishing that they would hate it every second, but they were eating so good. And I'm like, how do you stop? And I had them in the 4-ounce bottles.
Okay.
So we had that. And then I thought the Phillips ones were so cute. So that's what I bought because they
Oh,
were
me
little,
too.
the
So cute.
short little chubby ones. And Jack went right onto there and just rode it all the way out to the end. He never switched after that. But with Kelvin, he had the reflux, and then we
Yeah.
thought it was the bottle. So we did Dr. Brown's with him much longer, probably till 3 months.
Okay.
And then I was like, dude, I don't know what you want from me. I'm not spending $1 million on bottles. So you're getting these ones. This is what you're getting.
The
And
Phillips.
he's just been fine since. Probably could be
Yeah.
better if I bought a million different ones, but I know
It wasn't better. It wasn't better.
no, like it's like I mean, you probably went through a bunch. I know one of my close friends, she switched 4 or 5 times because her baby was breastfed, wouldn't take bottles, going through all the different ones, ended up on the ma'am. Is that how you say it? Ma'am
Yeah, my sister-in-law
bottles.
loved the man bottles, and
Yeah.
Daisy loves those pacifiers, but I just stuck with Como Tomos this time, and Colton ended on Como Tomos, so those were
Worked out
universal favorite, and they're really cool, but they're really hard to open because they're silicone, so it's just an interesting.
Are they the ones that like? What's good? What's different about the Komotomo ones?
They're silicone instead of plastic, so they're like squishy, and I don't know, so, like I guess that makes a difference. A, but B, I think they're more similar to a nipple. So if you're doing like combo feeding,
got it.
It mattered, which is. I mean,
we're very scientific here.
Very scientific. Like you guys tell us, we'll just keep doing stats and using our stats as ChatGPT is going to take it and be like 44% of the population
uses whichever bottle. Yeah,
right.
I feel like bottles are like half person. They can't tell you which one they like, so like you use what you use. But if you're on Dr. Brown's, I feel really bad for you. I hope that you're okay and you're washing.
I've heard that they are. I've heard that they are the best, and I just now that Daisy's a year, and as kids come up on a year, you're supposed to get them off the bottle because Daisy never breastfed. I exclusively pumped, so that made it a lot easier too. I feel like I made the decision. That's another decision if you're going to try and breastfeed. I made the decision. I remember talking to some of the girls in the group very early to exclusively pump. She wasn't latching. She wasn't getting enough milk, and my sanity, same thing. I knew I was going to be able to produce more milk for her by not doing that, A. And then B, my sanity, I could just put my schedule together. And when you are exclusively pumping, it's every 3 hours, then every 4. You really get to decide.
It's such a hard scheduling thing too, because you probably just get the hang of it by the 2nd month. And then you're starting to get into your 3rd month and you're like, shoot, I have to prep to go back to work. I can't keep the schedule. So you're just constantly.
And we talked about schedule last week. So it's just like that. Based on how much milk they need or how frequently they eat, you start changing the pumping schedule. And now I'm trying to wean off. And it's hard to figure that out. And I know we got a story from someone. I love when people are starting to wean their babies off breastfeeding because kids are weird. And when they get teeth, I don't know how people breastfeed because they start biting. And she said that her 11-month-old was literally just sitting there, unconsolable, crying. She decided, hey, I'm going to try and whip it out. Usually that does help.
Yeah.
And they latched, pulled back, looked at her, licked her nipple, and she was like, yep, this is done. Like,
Done.
they know
Oh my
what this
God.
is. They know what this is.
See, like my personality, I could never like. That's how I know. I'd be like, what just happened? I'd feel.
Well, Colton didn't breastfeed from like 9 months old on, and he's still obsessed with nipples. You know that. I told you
Yeah,
brought the
that's
chocolate
true.
chips home
Big
and was holding
boob
him
guy.
up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he's just the boob guy. I mean,
I
we
think
get it,
that's
Mom.
facts, but I hope
We get it.
he's, gets over that
I know.
outwardly soon because he's 5. He's gotta tame it down. He's got a lot of girlfriends, but I know that the decision to breastfeed or bottle feed is a big decision. And you and I talk about this a lot. We do things very differently. And we always, like you said, respect
Yes.
whatever decision it is that anybody makes. And I think there's so much pressure to breastfeed. And that's not always best, especially like if you're on special medications or it hurts your mental health
Sure.
or,
Yeah.
the baby's just not happy. Also, bottle feeding, they were encouraged at my mom's era to bottle feed
Yeah.
because they knew what nutrients was in there. They specifically
Right.
make those formulas to help your babies grow. So I don't think there's a wrong way.
Right.
I think it's what works for you and your kid. And I think it's important not to judge anyone for the decision they make. And I think it's okay to allow yourself to change your mind. So many people
Yes.
feel like I said I was going to do this, so
You
I
to be
have to do
flexible.
it. You have to be flexible with yourself because circumstances change. And if you don't go with the flow, you'll end up crazy. And we're already crazy.
Right. And I have a feeling that we're going to need to stay flexible for the next 18 years.
Yeah, there's no end. You see those
This
memes
is just
of,
the start of the things that we have to worry about.
I talk to my mom every day and I call her for stupid stuff. Like how the other day she was watching me cut a carrot. She's like, it's not how you cut a carrot. I was like, what do you mean?
You missed that then, Mom.
She hands me the like thing that you like strip the
Okay.
carrot. I'm not a great cook. Let's not lie. I had no idea. I knew she did something and I was wrong, but I didn't want to ask what I was doing wrong. And she had to correct me. So like moms, you need them forever. There's no end in
That's
sight.
true. We are needed. But I think everyone needs to keep sharing their stories with us. We will put up more areas to do it, but please just send us a DM if you have a funny story so that we can laugh with you, not at you.
Yes.
And I think it's time for us to clock out.
Yeah, we'll see you for our next episode and look forward to hearing more of your insights and sharing them with the rest of the group.
Bye.